All right.
All right.
For everyone here watching wherever you are watching, it could be live, it could be on demand after. Welcome to another, again, we don't have a great name for this, but we're going to keep rolling with it. Weekly marketing webinar with hashtag paid. The point here for everyone that's new or people that maybe need a refresher is we do this every Wednesday, 1 p.m., 20 minutes. The idea is to give you a perspective or give you insight into whether it's something related to influencer marketing or tangential to influence marketing that either can get you started thinking about maybe how do you run a strategy related to it, or how do you better help your team and your marketing team. And I was lucky enough to be introduced to the person to my right, or at least on my screen to my right, around a month ago through a mutual friend of ours. I had heard of it, the company that he had started, or that he had started and continues to run, called Fallen Media, and was pretty impressed by what I heard. And then when we spoke, I just took it to a new level, and I was actually lucky enough to meet one of his creators that runs one of the shows through Fallen Media last Thursday, and was blown away. And so, Saul, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm excited to do this.
Danny, thank you for having me. Yes, we need to workshop a new name. We can work on that together. I think
Yeah.
webinars
Is
webinars a tough one.
I'm with
But
you.
no, I'm kidding. No, very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, of course, dude. Tell me this, or for everyone watching, tell us this in like 30 seconds, a minute. What's the history here? What were you doing before Fallen Media? How did you come to Fallen Media? What is Fallen Media?
Yeah. So I'll just start with who we are, and then I can get into sort of how we
Cool.
ended up here. But we're one of the larger short form content studios out there. So we, in a sense, started by saying really people don't watch TV, even streaming. They really don't want to watch, and so people are spending a lot of time on short form platforms, TikTok, Reels, Shorts. How do we create really entertaining content with creators at the forefront of that, starring and hosting all of our shows? How do we create great content that we put out consistently, made for platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Reels, and Shorts? And so we have about 10 million followers across all our original series that go from like man on the street content to dating and relationships content. We're working on an original food series right now. We do close to 100 million views a month, and for us, we work with brands to put them at the forefront of our audience in really fun and creative ways. And so what was I doing before this? I was really all over the place. I was in the tech startup world for a bit. I worked in licensing, product licensing. I worked in like regular social media marketing for a while. And I was looking for my next thing. And I met my co-founder, who we started the company 3 years ago. He was 15 at the time. He was very big in the meme world. I met him through a New York Times article and reached out on a whim. And we met up in New York. I sent him a message, and we met up in New York, and we started the company really focused on being, I would say, like, we were basically a meme marketing agency. He knew all these like big meme pages. I knew the business. And so we started there, and we started to see, again, this really big rush to short form video from a consumer perspective. So we thought we don't really want to be a middleman. We'd like to own our own audience. We want to have a little bit more control over not just what our fans see, but how we work with brands. And so we started with our first show, What's Poppin' with Davis. First really was like the first Man on the Street series on short form. Now, there's like so many of them. And that really blew up, and we saw success there and really pivoted the business to focus on where we are now, which is this short form media company.
Yeah. What made you realize that, like, of course there was attention, you say 3 years ago, of course there was tons of attention around TikTok, but what made you come to the conclusion, because it was a really smart conclusion, that TikTok's essentially like TV, it's just more the modern form?
I think to us, it was a little obvious because we weren't watching TV. Like we were spending so much time, and even 2021, COVID, but we would go, going out, and like if you wait online at a coffee shop, everyone's scrolling through short form, whether that's Instagram or TikTok. So to us, it was like obvious people are really being entertained on these platforms, and the platforms were also moving from what are your friends doing to how do we keep you on our platforms for longer and entertain you. And so it was like, why don't we create high quality entertainment for that? Yeah.
And so how long did it take? You said What's Popping with Davis was the first show that was developed, and then the first show that really took off. What's that process like to develop a show? For all the marketers in the room here who see these great shows that you and your team run and all these other companies run, I think there's like an allure around it's so cool they wish they had their own show, but they don't really understand the behind the scenes. So how long does it take, or what is that process to create that show?
Yeah, I would say from concepting to execution when the first episode goes out, it's probably about 2 to 3 months. When we sit down to think about a show, we're really thinking about um, really what stands out from everything else on short form. Because again, as a studio, we have have a team of producers and creatives and editors that can bang out something that's really far beyond what everyone else is doing than maybe just an individual creator can do on their own. And so we start by saying, what's better than whatever else is out there? What do we think can speak to really what Gen Z is looking for? Really come off as authentic, but also what do we think brands can connect with too? Right? Like we've had shows that have been done really amazing, but brands didn't connect with it. And so as we've gone through the process, it's like we know, early on when we're concepting what is something a brand is really going to like, but also fans are really going to like. And that, we get there by standing out in a way. So we'll sit down, we'll just come up with a ton of ideas, pulling from what's out on TikTok to what we think is up and coming. We'll start there. We'll really sort of, tweak concept over and over again for another couple of weeks until we finally get something that we think is really workable. And then really, honestly, the bulk of our time is spent looking for talent. We spend hours and hours and hours looking for up and coming content creators, whether they're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, just spend a lot of time there. And that's where we spend probably 2 months of that process is looking and vetting talent. Because when brands work with us on a show, they're not just looking for a concept, they're looking to be connected to talent. Like brands love working with Street Hearts, which is our dating series, or What's Poppin' with Davis, which is our original Man on the Street concept, because they love the talent. So for us, we really want to find talent that brands will be proud and excited to connect their brand to.
Early on in that answer, you talked about when you're developing the show, you're looking at again where's the market going, what's going to be a good thing to slot in, but then also what do brands want? What have you come to over the past 3 years when you're thinking about what are shows or what are concepts that brands want? What indicates what a brand wants, or maybe what are some like decision criteria that you roll through?
Yeah, it's funny because what I realized was there are some brands that are, I don't want to insult any brands, but there are some brands that are really with it. Like if you're doing something really radical, they get it and they want to be a part of it. But I would say that most don't. Like most are looking for, in a way, they need to see how they can integrate a brand into the show. Like they almost, when brands come to us, they're like pitching us like, oh, we would love it if Davis would, run over to someone and ask them this question. Or we would love it if you put our soda on the table during an episode of Street Hearts. And like they're coming to us, they have to see it in their brain that where they can integrate a product. And so when we think about a show like being 10x what everyone else is doing, it's got to be 10x what everyone else is doing, but it's got to be in a way where it maybe isn't too crazy, where a brand maybe can't envision their product being a part of it. And I think that over time, brands will start to get more open to like sort of bigger ideas, newer ideas, and we'll be right there when that happens. But I think for us, it's all the other things. It's great talent. It's punch up, not down. That's really important to us. Is like we're not looking to be controversial. We're just looking to make people smile. So for us, that's number one. But I think realizing slowly that there's a lot of content on TikTok. Not a lot of people have success with brands, and so for us, it's knowing what they're looking for and knowing that we can put something out that we know that they'll visualize their product being a part of our content.
Yeah, and you've had tons of experience pitching brands, working with brands. You just said not a lot of brands see some success on TikTok. What's the reason in your mind, or why do you think that's so?
Easy answer. And I try to tell brands this. It's like you're coming to us, and this is what we do all day. Like as a brand or an agency, or really a brand, you make a product, right? Like that's what you do. I don't come to you and tell you how to make this soda or how to sell that at retail, or that's your thing, right? Manufacturing, that's a brand, that's your thing. For us, we put out successful short form content every day. So we try to tell brands like, let us do our thing. Like you're paying us to bring some value. And so, tell us where our guardrails are. What points do you want to hit on? What does success look like for you? That's important. Of course, we want to make sure we hit on those, but then sort of like let us lead you in a sense. and be open. And I think a lot of brands, they fall short when they work with creators in general on short form on YouTube. They start to tell the creator, this is how you should do it. Like, I'm going to pay you all this money to tell you what to do. It doesn't make sense. So for us, like, I've seen a lot of brands fall short when they try to give us too strict rules, and they lose out on the very authentic part of our content. I've had a brand, we did a very big deal with a brand a couple of months ago, and they spent a lot of money. And we were, it was, you know, it was great. We had a great relation. We have a great relationship with them, but they were like, we want an intro in the TikTok video. Like, we want the video to start with an intro. And we're like, you got to capture people in a second, maybe 2 seconds, or they're out. If you have an intro, it's going to ruin it. And they were like, no, we need an intro. And we're like, okay, fine. You know, at the end of the day, we want to make you happy. But, you know, in a sense, like, it makes for content that maybe won't perform as well.
Yeah.
Maybe
No.
that was a little harsh. I'm, you know,
Hey,
it's definitely something that we think about a lot. So I'm
Yeah.
venting, Danny.
this is the therapy session, this isn't actually
Right.
educational for marketers. This is just a therapy session for you. That's how I got you on here.
Exactly.
Sorry to everyone
Exactly.
here. Sorry to everyone here.
Send me the bill. Send me the bill.
Tell me this. We've been talking about the positive side of it, and I think there are so many positive sides too. Creating a show, affinity, finding talent, really building something incredible. It builds on your brand equity, etc. What are the downsides to building a show on TikTok? We're trying to build this repeatable format on TikTok. Are there any?
I don't think there's any downsides. I think the hard part is that now really more than ever, there's a lot on TikTok. There's a lot on the platform. And you really, really need to stand out. So a lot of times you'll start out with a format that's really successful, that got you to 1 million followers in a short amount of time. And I think this goes for all the platforms, even YouTube, but you got to keep it hot. And so that's the hard part, is how do you keep it fresh? How do you make sure that you are always just churning out new content that's maybe different? A lot of the, sort of for us, one of the things we've been doing is we've been trying to get, and it's been working. We've been getting a lot of celebrities on our shows. We've got Ed Sheeran coming up on one of our shows. We just did Drew Barrymore. We just had Rebecca Black, who had that song Friday. A couple of years ago, she went viral for that. So she was on our show Street Hearts. That got 2 million views. So like, if we can get, maybe something, again, that stands out, that's what keeps it hot. We tried a new wheel segment on What's Poppin', where we built out this giant prize wheel and we went live in the park. That content's doing really well. So like, starting with a really great format, but knowing when to mix it up, that's the hard part. And knowing how to mix it up, that's the hard part. And that's something that, we've gotten really good at. So I wouldn't say there's any downsides.
No, yeah. No, but I hear you. As the longer you wait, the more content that's up there, the better the idea has to be. So I'm with you. First mover advantage, to your point about being there 3 years ago, starting stuff on the street, very, very different game than starting today and trying to compete with everyone else. You spoke a little bit about working with brands, how to work with brands. What is the easiest way, or what's like the simplest way a brand could work with a show like Street Hearts or What's Popping or any one of the Follow Media shows?
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes everywhere from like simple video by video brand deals. So it's like we work with a lot of the movie studios. So a lot of times we have a new movie coming out, we have a new TV show coming out. And they'll leave it at that and they'll go, what can you do there? And we'll say, okay, great. The movie's about, give you an example. We did something for Knock at the Cabin, Universal's movie back in February. And it's like a scary horror movie. And so we would have Davis running over to people and saying, what would you want to do the last thing you do before the end of the world? Because I think that's what sort of the movie was about. And then we had people dress up as the cast of the movie and then run over and scare them. And that made for really fun content. So that's like that's one video promoting a movie. It's great. They let us, have a little fun with it. And so we came up with the creative end-to-end edit, production, all of that, and put out a really great video. So that's one example, all the way to like, which we love more is like when we do sort of longer term, what we call title sponsorship deals, which a lot of creators don't do and probably should. We did a great title spot. Cash App was the title sponsor of What's Poppin' for almost a year. And their logo is on the microphone. We put powered by Cash App in the bio. We made them content to live on their pages. And so it created this effect where our audience was coming closer to Cash App, and Cash App's audience was coming closer to our audience. And so it made for like just this really organic flow where it wasn't like in your face an ad, but it's like, oh, I know what's popping. It's sponsored by Cash App. It's sort of like you're hitting them every day without it being too in their face. We love deals like that. And then, of course, like we've got a roster of 6 or 7 shows. We love it when brands come to us and say, we love what you guys do. How can, in a way, integrate, like working on a deal now where it's all at once across all of our shows. We're all going to post at the same time in New York City. And so it's going to create like a moment. We love that too. So we love when brands let us get creative, I would say. That's like sort of the gamut in terms of regular deal to bigger, longer term situations.
Has a brand ever come to you and asked about, like, hey, Saul team and Fallen team, can you create a show for us? Like, find the talent, like, let's come up with the concept together, and can we create a show? Like, has that ever happened?
Yes, we used to do that and we stopped. We shut that part of the business down. And I would say a couple of reasons, but I mean, from our just our business perspective, like we want to focus on putting out great original content, and it's a lot of work to put on these shows. So to stop our original content and trying to make hits, we got to stop and like now build another show from scratch. It's that a brand may only want for a couple of months, and they may just say, hey, like, we're sort of thinking about things differently. You spent all this time building a show. That's tough, but I would say the main reason is brands and a studio like ours are very different. Like brands have very strict guidelines. They have legal, they have like, if we're going to make a show from scratch, here's how we think we should do it. And we have our way. And so a lot of times if you keep it a little too open, it's a lot of this, and you end up with too many cooks in the kitchen in a sense. And everyone's all over the place and it doesn't produce a great product. And we only go to make great stuff. Like we don't make anything we don't make shit. So for us, like we want our best shot to put out the best possible content. And we think the way to do that is let us do our thing. Let us come up with a great concept, get all the pieces in place, find the great talent, the concept, put all the pieces together. And then you go to the brand and say, hey, it's already there. It's like set up and ready to go. It's much less work for you and for us to start something from scratch, and probably more successful. It's more plug and play. So that I would say in a nutshell is why we don't do that. I know people that do that, and it sometimes it works, but I think we're really focused on putting out great original content and figuring out how to sort of push brands into the shows in a way that feels organic with our fans.
Sure. No, that definitely makes sense. The last thing I'm interested in is like thinking of the idea where TikTok's almost the new traditional TV. As you were saying, everyone's always on it, especially Gen Z, maybe even millennials. When you think about reporting the success, or like when you think about metrics that you're reporting on for the shows when you're working with brands, how do you report success? What are those metrics that you're using to showcase to the brand that it was really successful?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's a couple of things. Definitely starting with engagement. We look at the comments really carefully to see what are people saying. Are people excited about this ad? Are they excited about the content? Are they interacting with the content? That's really important. And then secondly is views. Like, did we punch above? When a brand does an influencer campaign, did we get more views than maybe some of the other activations? That's really important to us. So I would say it's how are our fans engaging with the branded content, but also like, are we getting did we get a lot of views for you? And I think that's why brands work with us, is because we do punch above our weight more often than not.
Mm-hmm. Is there, if you could change one thing about working with brands that would help to unlock maybe new ideas or unlock new types of partnerships that you would be really excited about, what is there one thing, is there something that you would change?
No, I think in general, I think brands need to, and it's not just an us thing. I think anytime brands are working with creators, I think more often than not, they should give the keys to the creators and or us in this example, and just say like, what do you think is right? What do you think is the right way to get the most bang for my buck? And sort of just, leave things a little bit. Yeah. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you'll see more brands doing that, where you have all these creators that know what they're doing. Let them do their thing.
Yeah, with you. 20 minutes goes by so quickly. This has
I'm
been
telling you.
an absolute pleasure for everyone listening in. Check out Fallen Media. Go check out all their shows. You're probably even watching and or following a bunch of their shows anyway. Saul, this has been amazing. Thank you for candidly sharing some info. Thank you for sharing a bit of an opinion on a bunch of different things. And for everyone here, thanks for again spending 20 minutes with us. Next week, we've got another conversation coming at you. We're speaking to our first talent manager on the show. We're speaking to a guy named Arjun Dobbs from Odd Projects. He oversees and manages and works with a lot of social good creators. And it's almost like social good creators are becoming the new philanthropists, and how brands can get integrated is a really interesting way. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. So I know you're at Vid Summit. Enjoy the rest. Enjoy being crazy around all these creators trying to pitch new ideas. Have a blast.
Love it.
And to everyone here, again, thank you for spending the 20 minutes with us. We will see you next week, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Love it. Thanks, Danny.
Of course. Catch you guys soon.